Welcome back, everyone, to the Libertas Freedom Podcast. It's your host again, Tyler Schwab, founder of Libertas International, and just want to thank you once again for being with us and supporting us in this endeavor to support God's precious children across Latin America. And in recent social media posts you'll see online as we're getting closer to the end of the year, we're asking for support to support repatriations. And I want to expound on what exactly that means, what that looks like, where your donor dollars go when we ask to support repatriations. Repatriation, to sum it up, is the work that Libertas International does to reunite families after loved ones have been trafficked overseas to different countries. Some of them may be more of the extreme type of cases that we may have, and we see fairly frequently. And so how it usually looks like is to put in the situations where vulnerable women will be seeking jobs, looking at job boards, talking with friends, and unfortunately, where they find these jobs, there's oftentimes predators looking to take advantage of them. And so I'm thinking of just, specific survivors, and I have actually our case files open here, so I can share some stories with you on what it looks like for someone to be repatriated to their countries of origin. But it's vulnerable women seeking jobs, and they see an advertisement. Maybe a Colombian woman sees an advertisement for a waitressing job in the Dominican Republic. Maybe a girl from Peru notices a job opening in Chile. And what we've seen especially like this year in 2023, is that there are organized criminal groups that offer fake waitressing jobs to survivors fleeing Venezuela. We've talked in other podcasts, at least I think 3 or 4 other podcasts, just how much the crisis in Venezuela has affected our work here at Libertas International, and how we're seeing Venezuelan women and children all across the region. So in this sphere, we help support with repatriations. So usually what it looks like is a government official will reach out to a member of our team and tell us about cases where they have recovered a survivor who's been taken from one country to another. And the legal process has started. They have their documentations. They have a new passport if their passport was taken, and they need someone to be repatriated. And so, even backing up, when these situations happen, these women from these different countries get their flight paid for, they get their travel paid for, and they end up at these establishments thinking that they're going to be working a specific type of job. And for one, we have to do better as far as prevention of this. And I don't know, honestly, what the solution is, because in every airport I've ever gone to in Latin America, there are signs that say, that if you're going to a job that seems too good to be true, it probably is. And so be aware of that. But when desperation and poverty set in and these women have children, those signs make little difference. And so they arrive at the establishment, they find that they've had, that there's a debt placed on them for their travel costs, a debt that has 45% interest daily. They get charged for food if they eat food there. They get charged for rent if they want to sleep there. They have their passports taken. They're oftentimes beaten, abused, and they're not able to get out. And so when they do get out, either by local law enforcement, they'll call us, and basically when they call us, they're in the need of 2 things, basically. One is paying for the flight home, which the governments can do it, but it takes a long time. And when someone's in an aftercare home, free of exploitation, but not free of the risk factors of being in a different country, maybe working through an addiction, or just missing their families, it's not a pleasant situation. And it's expensive for the government to pay for rent, pay for food during these times of waiting. So in this situation, they ask us to pay for a flight. And so when donors give to Libertas International supporting repatriation, the first thing that we do with that is just go on Expedia and purchase those flights home, where we can pre-book everything, we can prepay for everything, and we get that into the hands of the government so they can work with the country receiving the survivor to receive that survivor back home to their country, do an interview there, whatever needs to be done. And then 2 is to provide aftercare for the survivor if she wishes when she arrives back in her country of origin. That's something that we worked a lot with our government partners, is when they go home, they still have to have access to some kind of aftercare, because the mitigating risks, the mitigating vulnerabilities that they had are still there. So it's important for us to address those when they get back home so it doesn't happen again, because we have unfortunately seen instances where some survivors have been trafficked twice after not having their basic needs met, to where another job comes up and they think to themselves, there's no way this can happen twice, and it does. And that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like how we reunite families. We've had some really amazing experiences with it. And it's through your support that we help do this. It's through your support that we help pay for these flights, and it's through your support that we are able to cover these repatriation costs and then get these survivors aftercare once they return to their country of origin. And so I'm actually, for the rest of this podcast, that's exactly how it works. It's not crazy complicated, but it's a needed necessity of reuniting families. Our most recent case, with our partners down in Colombia with a group called Valiente Colombia. It was a Mexican woman who had taken, or a Colombian woman who had taken a fake job offer to Mexico, where she was beaten, she was abused, and she happened to escape. And she got her documents, and all she needed was a flight. So that's what we did. We booked that flight. However, during the abuse, during the exploitation, she wasn't able to have any communication with her kids, with her family. And so she had like 2.5 months without having any contact with her kids. Had no idea if she was alive, if she was dead. And so when we flew her home and she went back home, we have video that's very sweet of just the beautiful reunion between children and their mother. That maybe the kids don't know exactly what happened, but they just miss their mom. They missed their mom, and they wanted to just love on their mom, and support her as she came home from Mexico to Colombia. That's a story that just recently happened down in Colombia. Obviously, because of the nature of our work, we do get a lot of cases in Colombia. Another example, still we'll stay in Colombia. There's a survivor. We'll call her Gloria. Gloria, she saw a fake job offer in the Dominican Republic, and so she took the job. She went to the Dominican Republic, and there she was beaten, she was raped, she had her documents taken, and she was forced to not only have a debt, but also to sleep with clients. Her situation, her traffickers were very violent with her. They would beat her. They would use objects to abuse her. And during one particularly violent assault, she was essentially left to die. She was bleeding out. She was, and the traffickers, she had overheard them saying that they weren't going to offer her any kind of medical care. They're just going to let her bleed out and then throw her body in the ocean. Another survivor from the same case put the survivor on her back, got her into a taxi, took her to a local hospital, got her fixed up, and then brought her back so that she was able to survive. This survivor was rescued by another survivor from the same case. And you may wonder, even with that story, well, why didn't they just run to the airport? In these situations, these survivors are told that they have police paid off. Any kind of threats that the traffickers have made against the survivors, they always follow through on. If you misbehave, I'll beat you. If you try to run, I'll lock you in your room for 3 days. And so it instills a fear to where there's a legit fear that if you run and talk to the cops, I'll kill you or your kids. That's a legit possibility. So in that situation, after a long investigation, this survivor was rescued in a project that we'll call the Project Catleya, which if you Google Catleya, it's a very well-known case down there in the Dominican Republic, and a lot of different groups were involved, but Libertas was asked, for the most part, to ask with the repatriations home for these women, and then supporting aftercare when they arrived home. And so this survivor's great. She's in nursing school. She's started a small business. We provided her with a soft place to land when she returned to Colombia so that the exploitation didn't continue. Another survivor here. I just have my case files open. I'm just looking through the ones that we've supported with repatriation. I'll call her Haley. Haley had a boyfriend who was part of a gang called El Tren de Aragua, which is a Venezuelan-based gang that is continuing to grow presence and violence all throughout Latin America, specifically in South America. She thought she loved this guy. She thought she was in love with him, and so he asked her to come with him to Peru. When she came to Peru, what awaited her was hell on earth. Being trafficked with these gang members, forcing her to do things against her will. And she was trafficked for 5 months, where she had to see oftentimes 4 or 5 clients a day. She finally escaped, asked for help from the Colombian embassy, and we actually did not pay for her flight home. She made it home on her own, through whatever method that she made it home. But when she got there, the government agent that kept in contact with her, that was part of her initial intervention, asked us to help support her. She had a dream of becoming a beautician in Colombia, and so that's what we did. Part of addressing those root causes of exploitation is the economic vulnerabilities that a lot of these women have, and if you give them a skill that not only they enjoy, but they're good at and can make money for them, we really like to invest in those type of things. And so this survivor is, I forget what I called her, using a fake name, but she's killing it. She's rocking it. She's got, she's, I think, about a year from graduating school, and then we will be blessed to see where she goes from there. This next case I've got open on my case files is actually a case of a male. We'll call him John. John, him and 4 friends were offered a job as dancers. All of them they're from Colombia again. All of them come from a city up in the north where dancing is such a part of the culture. And they took this job in Turkey. They thought that they were taking a job in Turkey to be dancers. And so when they get up there, everything was good the first couple of days. And then the people that own this dance club started to restrict their movement, started to inform them of their debts, ask for their documents, and before long asked them to begin strip for Middle Eastern men. And so this lasted about a week and a half before this survivor, John specifically, took command and leadership of him and these 4 teenagers that went with him. One was the only male, and there were 4 females, ages 18 to 21, I believe. Juan reached out to Migration Colombia, asked for help, said what was happening to him, and in migration as quickly as they could. They worked on the passports. They worked on getting somewhere to receive them when they arrived in Colombia. But they needed the flight. They needed to pay for the flight. And if you guys have ever traveled to the Middle East, a flight from Istanbul to Bogota is not a cheap flight. And so we really had to pull together our resources and fundraise and talk amongst ourselves. It was a big cost. And for a nonprofit, we were under the obligation to donors to have these conversations. And it was a big cost, but we ended up pulling the trigger on it because these 4 kids were suffering in Turkey, and that's what donors give to. So that's what we did. They made it home. They had to go take a couple of buses because they were not so much in Istanbul. They were on a little bit of the outside, so they had to get on a bus, sneak on a bus. And John, he really took leadership of this group of survivors and was in constant communication with me to making sure that everything was okay. They were catching their flights, that they had all their bags paid for, and just became a leader to these other survivors as well. And when they came home, we did the exact same thing. We set them up in whatever they wanted to do. It's important for us to always listen to survivors, have them guide us on how they want to heal. So John, he wants to study psychology in college. So that's something that's currently happening. Some of the girls also want to study social work, psychology, to one day end up working for Libertas, which is very sweet, and we would be lucky to have them. And they're all doing a great job. They made it home from the Middle East. They survived, and they are healing because they deserve to heal. We don't expect them. I hear sometimes that, well, you got to heal from your trauma so that you can help others heal and you can share your story and be an inspiration. And I don't know if I'm 100% on board with that mindset of thinking. If a survivor wants to share her story, share their story, great. If they want to become an activist, if they want to do that, go down that path, I respect them, and I'm thankful for them. We have survivors at Libertas to speak on our behalf. They've chosen to come out publicly and share what's happened to them. But if they decide not to do that, that's okay too. Because I believe that you deserve to heal, period. There's no reason to expand on that. You deserve to heal. You deserve to heal because you matter, you're a person, and you deserve to, just as much as anybody else, pursue your dreams and find what you like to do and do it, period. Not because you can do anything else other than you deserve to heal. The last story I'll share is another one from, let's look at this list here. There's so many stories. There's so many amazing examples of so many women that have survived and that have done so many good things. And honestly, I would tell you one that wasn't from Colombia, but so many of these cases come from Colombia. And so I'm just going to stick with Colombia. The one I'm going to settle on to share the story is, it will be, let's do, I apologize. I'm going to share a story of a girl that I'll call Linda. Linda was an awesome collaboration between the Panamanian government and our Colombian team at Libertas International. There was a 21-year-old survivor who escaped her trafficker and found her way into the hands of the Panamanian government. Very trusted, very good people that took her to a hospital to get treated for her wounds that she had suffered at the hand of this trafficker. However, these traffickers found out where she was and made threats to not only her, but everybody in the hospital, including the doctors. And so the doctors in Panama refused to treat her. They said, get her out of this hospital. She is not worth my life. And so our trusted partners in Panama, and this was our first case with the Panamanian government, so it was a good first impression. But they reached out to us and they explained the situation, said that they didn't have anywhere to keep her, that she wasn't safe in Panama, if there was any way that we could fly her back to her country in Colombia. She had been tricked. She was taken, she went by bus from Colombia to Panama, where she was trafficked for a number of months out there before she escaped. And with the government, they could have solicited this support on their own, but it would have taken months. And this girl didn't have months. She had minutes at best. And so we acted. We asked for the information to get on the passport, to buy the tickets. And in a matter of 45 minutes, we had a plane ticket for her social worker and her to go back home that same night on the very last flight, on the last two seats of the last flight that went from Panama to Colombia, in the city that she was from. And when she arrived, she found our team there. Our team took not just the survivor, but the Panamanians out to dinner, gave her a welcome home meal, and then traveled with her to drop her off at her house to make sure she got there safe. And they continued to work with her on different aspects of her healing that she could focus on once she had seen her family and made herself comfortable in her new home. And these are the stories. These are the stories of the survivors here at Libertas International, and it's what you help do when it comes to reuniting families. I think there's a misconception in the anti-human trafficking movement to where some of these kids are kidnapped and they don't see their families for a long period of time. And that happens, but it's not the majority of cases. The majority of the cases, even here as I have my case file open, these survivors were living at home when they were trafficked. They weren't kidnapped. Sometimes their parents were involved. So the idea of reuniting families is most accurate when it comes to funding flights to help survivors get repatriated home. To reunite families and support our government partners with that one missing piece that could really gum up the process, and it's that flight. And so when you give to Libertas International, if you go to Libertas International right now and you give $500 or more, you're going to help fund the reunification of a family. That's what it takes. So what I would love, if someone listens to this podcast and that has the money to give, go to our website, libertasfreedom.org, and sign up to become a monthly donor at $550 a month. If you were to give $550 a month, you would reunite a family, a mother with her kids, every single month that donation is active. And so I would encourage that. If you have that money to give, please go to libertasfreedom.org, because that's what it costs. That's what it takes. That's the average cost of the flights that we help book. Obviously, the ones from Turkey were a couple grand. But on average, a flight from Peru to Venezuela or Dominican Republic to Colombia, the average cost is $550. So listen to this podcast, become a monthly donor, go to libertasfreedom.org, and sign up to give $500 a month. You doing that reunites families. And those that give monthly, reunite a family, reunite a mother with her child every single month. And so as I close this podcast, I hope you understand a little bit more about what the idea is behind repatriation. When we post about this, it gives you an idea about it. It's such a special way to support our government partners and these survivors and reunite mothers with their children. And so once again, from the Libertas International podcast, Tyler Schwab encouraging you to go to libertasfreedom.org, become a monthly donor, and help us support the repatriation of these survivors to reunite mothers with their children. We will see you next time. We will see you next time on the Libertas International podcast. Have a great night.